Nothing gets your blood flowing like a good horror flick, whether it's jump scares, gruesome or psychological toying, blood and gore instill a primitive fight-or-flight response in even the most seasoned of horror fans. Here are 9 horror video games that'll make your blood run cold. Before moving on to the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon for more updates. Get ready to feel the chills. Number 1. Project 03: The Tormented. Released on PS2 in 2005, is a Japanese video game developed and published by the good people of Tecmo and known to the rest of the world as Fatal Frame 3. Project 03 follows Rei, a young photographer mourning the death of her late fiancé. This fiancé was killed in a crash that is heavily implied to be Rei's fault, and he was struggling to find a joke to lighten the mood, so let's move on. As if that isn't dark enough, she's also cursed by a spirit that causes terrifying nightmares of a haunted manor house whose inhabitants sadly do not have the warm, approachable temperament of Casper. The friendly ghost armed with only a camera, Rei must traverse the dream manor each night while she sleeps to uncover the reason for her curse and ultimately figure out how to break it without relying on cheap scares. Project 03 manages to keep the player thoroughly creeped out throughout its admittedly short run, capturing a spooky, intense atmosphere, all while delivering a story that'll truly get under your skin. Number 2. SOMA. For the same reason that the thought of being confined in outer space scares the pants off, so does the thought of being trapped underwater. What's worse than being trapped underwater, though, is being stuck in a research facility, knowing that you're among a handful of the last surviving human beings on the planet, throwing into the mix a bunch of hulking enemies, and discoveries that your body actually died upon the surface and that your consciousness has been transplanted into the corpse of one of the fallen researchers, and you've got a recipe for a weekend. You probably would rather forget it, while it nails all the horror atmospheres, terror puzzles, big creepy monsters, and so on. What SOMA really lands is its particularly brand of isolation, which gives you a feeling that you and your colleagues are the last of humankind. Y'all are all alone down there at the bottom of the ocean, and no one is coming to save you from this nightmare. And that, dear viewers, are where the true terror lies. Number 3. Chiller. Released in 1986 by Exidy, Chiller featured the worst judge gore in gaming history. The game's entire plot was killing helpless innocent torture victims who were already strapped down, motionless, and trapped in murderous machines, but still took ages to die. In the game, the player takes the role of an undisclosed torturer who must dominate, mutilate, and kill immovable non-player characters in several dungeon settings. Some of the NPCs can even fight back, with a challenging element of how fast the player can murder each victim. This game tried to invent the Saw franchise 2 decades early. The graphics were not scary enough for people who like to play these games, but absolutely scary enough to terrify everyone else. If Jack Thompson got a time machine, this is the sort of game he would plan in the past to prove himself right. Most US arcade owners refuse to stock it. Number 4. The Path. The Path is a psychological horror art game that was developed and released by Tale of the Tales back in 2009. Initially released for Microsoft, was later ported by Mac OS by Transgaming Technologies. The storyline was borrowed from the classic Little Red Riding Hood, in which the player chooses to control one of 6 sisters who are told by their mother to go to the house of their grandmother. While following the path to grandmother's house is easy enough, you just have to walk forward and you'll eventually reach it. But that's not how you're supposed to play the game. Once you start wandering off the path, you'll encounter items that begin to tell a more disturbing story than one about a girl simply visiting Granny. The sounds and visuals in this game are enough to give someone nightmares alone. The Path is not a long game by any means, so it's worth your time if you're into atmospheric horror games. Number 5. Amy. Amy is a survival, stealth, and horror video game that was released in 2012. It was developed and published by Lexus Numeric. The storyline of the game depicts the journey of a child named Amy. She's an autistic with supernatural powers and has a protector named Lana. The eponymous Amy is an 8-year-old girl who can magically heal you, hack computers, crawl through vents like a miniature Bruce Willis, and cause the laws of sound and space themselves to cease operation. The story takes place in a zombie-infested city where Amy is immune, and Lana must stay close to her for frequent healing while protecting her from the zombies. They must also fend off the Phoenix Foundation, an organization that tends to control Amy and exploit her strange powers. The game received negative reviews due to clunky controls, game design, voice acting, and poorly implemented gameplay, although its sound design, art direction, and music were praised. On 2012, VectorCell announced the patch for Amy, which included major changes like saving players' progress and skipping sequences in-game. Number 6. PT. PT, or a playable teaser, is a psychological horror game developed by Kojima Productions and published by Konami. It was released under the pseudonym 7780 Studio in 2014 as a free download on the PlayStation Network. PT served as an installment in the Silent Hill series. PT centers on an unnamed protagonist who awakens in a concrete-lined room and opens the door to a haunted corridor. The short experience has you walking around a cramped apartment in an infinite time loop. When you try to leave through the front door here, you're immediately taken right back to the very beginning and have no choice but to repeat the whole process. To progress, the player must investigate frightening events and solve cryptic puzzles. Each time a loop is completed successfully, changes appear in the corridor. Additionally, the player encounters a hostile ghost named Lisa. If she catches the protagonist, the player has a random chance of triggering a jump scare when turning the camera horizontally and is sent back to the beginning of the current loop. Number 7. Visage. When Silent Hills was cancelled by Konami in 2015, a slew of spiritual games and successors heavily influenced by the Silent Hills' playable teaser came out. This comprises Sad Square Studios' first game, The Visage, a psychological horror. Set in the 1980s, you play as Dwayne Anderson, a resident of a huge home that is being distressed by the supernatural as he tries to find a way out of the house and comes to know more about the paranormal activity in his house. As you dig more into the mostly quiet and dark house, supernatural entities will provoke you by turning on or off the lights, breaking light bulbs, and slamming doors. This constant barrage of sensory terror, including trying to maintain Dwayne's sanity, makes Visage one of the more challenging horror games which came out in recent years. It's a trial and error game, but your patience is rewarded with a fascinating story and plenty of jump scares. Number 8. Outlast. There's something about one and around a dark, scary hospital. It's always creepy, especially when you're playing as someone without weapons whose only means of self-defense is running and hiding. Outlast is the first-person survival horror game that was developed and published by Red Barrels. The storyline revolves around a psychiatric hospital named Mount Massive Asylum, located in the deep mountains of Lake County, Colorado. There's some classic jump scares that you see coming, and they still get you anyway, whether it's a body swinging from a ceiling, a dude something over in a wheelchair shooting up and coming to life, or having that big dude turn a corner, then relentlessly starting to chase you down. Outlast also kills it with the jump scare music, making those scares even more jumpy. Number 9. Amnesia, The Dark Descent. We're putting it at the top of the list because some people claim they can't finish it, and some consider it one of the best horror games ever, so much respect for that. Released in 2010, Amnesia is a survival, adventure, and horror game developed by Frictional Games. The Dark Descent puts you in control of a young man named Daniel, who is trapped in a castle without his memory. Daniel has forgotten the extent of his identity and has no idea why he's in the creepy fortress. It's up to you to guide him through the castle's dim corridors, which are also filled with monsters. You have no choice but to run away. The game has no combat and no weapons. Your only chance for survival is to run away from the horrors you encounter while trying to keep a grip on your sanity. Now, saying that, we've come to the end of this video. Do let us know in the comments section about other video games that scared the hell out of you. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. We'll surely meet again in the next episode. Until then, take care and sleep tight.